I believe that you can control it when you fight off the thoughts that start coming in when you are headed towards a depression and start doing a positive thought cycle that can pull your mind out of that. And I think create the right chemical mix in your brain to foster that to happen. So I think that really it's more self-mastery is what necessary as opposed to medication. That's my personal feeling on it. I'm not a doctor. So, I mean, I don't have the credentials to be standing on here, but in my own personal experience, I think that self-mastery is definitely possible.
Welcome back to Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations, the space where we dive deep into honest reflections, powerful stories, and life-changing insights. Today, I'm honored to be joined by a courageous voice in the world of addiction recovery, a passionate advocate for transformation, and the creator of the groundbreaking Flavour of Confidence, S.O.B.E.R method. From battling bipolar disorder and addiction to becoming a beacon of hope and confidence, his journey is raw, real, and deeply inspiring. Welcome to the show, Massimo. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Toby. I am doing just absolutely wonderful today. As I mentioned before we came on, I was so happy to see the sun today. It's been 6 days of rain, and there's just something about the sunshine that just brightens one's mood.
Yes, I totally, relate to that, and I agree to that also. The sun just makes you feel happier, basically. I don't know. There's the energy that comes with it.
Yes, absolutely. It's like it powers you up, and then you just feel like you can attack. And I had a very productive morning. I'm at midday at the moment, and it's just been I think I've done more in the half day today than I did the previous 3 days.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, are you the kind of guy that, when the sun is shining, you raise up all the blinds and let the sun, fill up your house or fill up your office?
Yes, exactly. And I'm a little bit spoiled. I live in a historical building and I have 16-foot ceilings. And so one of
Wow.
these incredibly large windows is behind me here. And so it's floor to ceiling window. And it is just absolutely beautiful when the sun comes through in the morning.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So, Massimo, we would like to get to know you better. And in order to get to know you better, we would like to play this game of wildcards. Are you up for it?
Sounds fun.
Sounds fun. So, like I said before we started recording, we have these three stacks of cards. I'm going to shuffle in the first stack right
Okay.
now, and I'll just pull up a card at random from the middle and ask you a question. Do the same for the next level, and hopefully, we'll get to know you a bit better in the course of these questions.
Sounds fun.
So, the first question is: if you could compliment yourself, what would you say?
I would compliment myself on my grit, my ability to persevere when it appears that there is no hope, there's no ability to get out of a challenge or situation. That's something that I've had most of my life. And it really was the one strength that brought me through into sobriety. And it truly is what gets me through every day, knowing that nothing is too difficult, that if I just continue to grind through it, that I will get to where I want to go. So yeah, I'd have to compliment myself on that because that's a great skill to have.
Yeah, that is. I mean, being courageous and being positive minded, I would say, right? I mean, being
Yeah,
positive.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Hopefully, I'll get to learn more about that in the course of this conversation too. I would like to be like that also. So, the second question is: what is something normal to you that other people find weird?
Oh, I like this question. I find, well, I find sarcasm to be probably one of the greatest love languages there is, which is, I think it provides a depth in understanding somebody to know where their mind can take them in the moment to twist and turn a situation into something that it isn't through sarcasm, and it shows a level of intelligence. And so I just absolutely love sarcastic people because it provides me some strange amount of joy. And whenever I share that with someone, they're like, "What is wrong with you? You like people telling you bad things about you?" I'm like, "Well, they don't mean it. They're sarcastically pointing things out." So it's just very interesting. But for me, that tells me that somebody noticed something about me that is a little bit off and it's endearing to them. So they've decided to poke fun rather than, gloss over it. And so that is a sign that somebody really cares about.
Mm. Okay, that's interesting.
I told you you wanted something weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sarcastic people are special. I think sometimes I could be like that also, but it depends on the person and the situation also.
Yes. Yes.
Are you ready for the last question?
Yes. This
Yeah,
is going to be the tough one, right?
maybe. So it says, describe your favorite moment in life. How does it feel now?
Wow.
Is that
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I mean, that is tough. I mean, because I can think of a couple different things, but I can think of one moment in my life that changed my life forever. Um, and so I'd say that favorite moment in my life is definitely when I met Samantha, who later saved my life in sobriety, just completely random on a beach in Florida, and immediately just say, this person looks interesting, and then meeting them and then changing my entire life. The randomness of that whole situation, I think, is beautiful.
oh, that's so beautiful. I was just reading about Samantha on your website some minutes ago, if I'm honest. And I know she passed away already. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
How was that for you? How was that like, meeting her at that stage in your life and she helping you? I mean, she was very passionate about helping you from what I understood. And then now she's gone. How is that like for you?
Well, I mean, losing her was probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever experienced, because her being 20 years younger than me, it's something that I never thought that I would be dealing with. You don't prepare yourself for things like that. And also, because she had poured so much of herself into me to save me from the absolute wretched individual I had become with addiction, seemed wrong in the moment that she was the one that was taken and not me. And so I struggled with that for quite a while. But then I realized that the best thing to do would be to honor her legacy by trying to help others achieve what I had achieved with her help. And that would be the best way to carry her on in my own life. And that's why I do what I do today.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, when I was reading the story and read that, she was murdered by a drunk driver, I was like, oh my God. I felt a bit sad and angry at the same time because, she was helping, people with addiction and, bipolar disorder and all that. And then being, taken away by a drunk driver.
It's dark irony at its finest. I mean, it really is. You can't describe it any other way. I mean, you help people that to have this challenge, and then it turns on you and takes you from this world. I mean, it truly is a dark irony. I mean, I'm with you. It's wild. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, that was the word. It felt like an irony to me. Like, oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
I hope what we are, in this world fighting against or helping other people to recover from is not the thing that will take us away, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Not great. All right. You said there might be a fourth question.
Yes, I said there might be a fourth question. Sorry, I was already thinking about Samantha. I'm so sorry for digressing so much into that.
No, that's okay. I personally kind of had to change the subject a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's still fresh in my mind. That's why. Okay.
We can
So
talk more about it. We can talk more about it.
the fourth question. It's not a question actually. It's like it's asking you to describe a moment that helped you believe in love.
I think that it was a very quiet moment between my great grandparents, and I was young. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and watching my great grandmother care for my great grandpa as he was starting to struggle to do stuff, and noticing this in silence, a way that no one was that thought that no one was watching, yet I saw, and the affection and care of two people near the end of their life, and how they'd spent 60 years together at this point, and just seeing that love, the strength of that bond was just absolutely amazing to me. And it set a bar for something that I wanted to achieve in my own life, yet I haven't accomplished. It's one of those goals that I still want to achieve.
Oh, yeah. I hope you achieve it very soon.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So okay, I would like us to talk about what you do. and how far you've come in your life journey already. So that's why I would like us to go back a little bit to that turning point in your life that led you, you know, from the depth of addiction to the path of sobriety and self-confidence. Can you like share that journey with us?
Sure. So we're going right back to Samantha. So here I
Sorry.
am. No, no, no. It's fine. It's just it just got a little dark there for me, and I was like, I need to change the subject personally, but I'm okay.
I respect that. I respect that so much.
So here I am. It's the 23rd of March in 2014, and I'm hanging out with friends on the beach in Destin, Florida, and about an hour before I meet Samantha, I see this girl walk by, and she's attractive, and she's got her earpods in, and she's listening to probably her at that point. It probably wasn't even an iPhone, but maybe it was anyway. And I was like, wow, she's really at peace with herself. I wonder where that comes from. And I wonder what she's thinking about. And so about an hour later, we're messing around on the beach, playing around, and my friends had come up with this silly game where they were laying down in front of people on the beach and like causing them to walk over the top of them. And so most people would walk around, but instead Samantha got in the game and she like literally walked across the back of one of my good friends and then took his hat off and put it on her head and kept walking down the beach. And then my friend's wife goes running after her and to get the hat back. And about 30 seconds later, she's coming back to grab my phone saying, "You would absolutely love this girl. I'm getting her number for you." And within an hour, we were talking and we were pretty much inseparable after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah, so it was great. But in that very first meeting or that night, within 10 minutes, she said, you don't have to drink to be awesome. And I looked at her and I was like, "Who are you? And what do you mean by that?" Trying to tell me I can't drink. It's just like one of those things that just in the moment that it upset me a little bit. But then it made me curious, like, why does she feel like she has the ability or the right to say that to me? So then I dug in and tried to learn more. And she said, "Well, I just see a person who's in a lot of pain." And it's like, wow, okay. I mean, I probably was. I felt like I probably was, but nobody had ever said anything like this to me. And so I listened, and that started that whole journey in which we got closer, and she really dug into my mind and discovered that I had challenges that needed to be fixed. Yeah. So that's how it all began. And I was still at the time successful by all means. I still owned a company. I still had employees and it was going well, but the wheels were kind of falling off. And I knew they were because my addiction had gotten so great that I was drinking in excess of 1.5 liters of hard alcohol a day. Yeah. So I was always drunk. There was at no point in time where I was sober because basically I would get up in the middle of the night and instead of getting a glass of water, I'd just take a couple shots of Jack Daniels because, why not? I mean, it's funny to talk about now, but it's pretty sad when I look back at it. But as everything just started coming apart at the end of that year, and I ended up homeless by the middle of December of 2014, and I was out on the street and lost, and eventually I didn't have a cell phone, and Samantha and I started corresponding by mail, and for lack of a better description, I'd say she kind of became my therapist by mail at that point. And which was challenging because we had spent a lot of time together over the preceding months. I had traveled. She lived in Alabama and I was in the Kansas City area. So we're like half a country apart. And I had gone to see her a couple times and we communicated endlessly over the phone and FaceTime. So that was something that was immediately cut off as well. So now I'm all alone. All of my friends and family basically said, "Well, you're kind of getting what you deserved." And so I'm faced with this challenge, and my one lifeline out here is this young lady in Alabama who's writing me letters. And so Samantha just kept asking me questions, what are you thinking before you want to drink? I want you to write it down for the next week and then send me a letter. And that was one I really remember very clearly because I had to go to the post office to weigh that letter because it was like 8 or 9 pages and I wasn't sure that it was going to get to
Wow.
her without extra postage, right?
Yeah.
But then she writes back to that long letter with just one thing. And she said, drink every other time. And so I took that as a challenge, and then I started working on that. But it continued to be a real struggle until I was able to look at myself and realize that I was running from one thing, probably. And what that one thing was, I needed to find out. And so as I searched within myself, I actually discovered that I had this massive fear of abandonment. And when you live in a space in your head where you're not confident enough that you can hold anyone's conversation long enough, that you literally feel in that moment that that person's going to walk away from a conversation with you. So like I would have instantaneous attachment to people that I just met. That a conversation, let's say that you're in a networking event, would be a good example of this. You might meet someone, shake their hand, and then you start talking to them a couple of minutes, and when they leave to go to talk to somebody else, that would like strike this massive amount of fear in me. This person's never going to talk to me again. What did I do wrong? When it has nothing at all to do with that, but that's where my mind would go. And for decades, the go-to to take care of that, we're just going to take a shot. We're going to take a drink. And so I'd coped my entire life with my own internal challenge because of this. And of course, it didn't help that I'm also bipolar. So there's this underlying challenge that I also had, is that I was struggling with, bipolar disorder. And luckily, generally speaking, most of my life, I was not in a depressed mode. I generally was up most of the time, but my depressions were just completely just paralyzing, to the point that I would not be able to move for 4 or 5 days. And when I say not be able to move, like literally, I would have to try to crawl to go to the bathroom when I got out of bed, because it just was like painful to do so. And anyone who suffers from bipolar disorder can likely relate to that challenge. And I'm happy to say, fast forwarding where I am today, that I have this almost 100% under control, and that in the last 12 months, I've only had one day where I was unable to move. And so I credit so much of that to my own method, because it has really helped me rewire my brain and think about things differently, that it's overall helped my bipolar disorder in addition to my addiction challenges.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have like two follow-up questions to what you just shared
Go
right
for
now.
it.
First of all, to the last thing about bipolar disorder, I need to know, just very naively asking, is it possible to heal pain or overcome, or let's go over it totally? Bipolar disorder, or bipolar disorder, is it possible to heal from it, or is it something that you have to train yourself to, master or control over time?
It's really a mastery and control. I think that there's a lot that, I mean, there's a school of thought that says there's no way that you can control it, and the only way is medication, and that's the way, that's the path. And then there's the other school of thought, which I'm squarely in, which is I believe that you can control it when you fight off the thoughts that start coming in when you are headed towards a depression, and start doing a positive thought cycle that can pull your mind out of that. And I think create the right chemical mix in your brain to foster that to happen. So I think that really it's more self-mastery is what necessary, as opposed to medication. That's my personal feeling on it. I'm not a doctor. So, I mean, I don't have the credentials to be standing on here, but in my own personal experience, I think that self-mastery is definitely possible.
Yeah, that's some of the things we'll learn from your method also very soon. So, come follow-up question before we go into your method. So, you made the mention of this example where, for example, you're in a networking situation settings and you're talking to somebody and the person leaves to speak to someone else, and then your mind goes to, what did I do wrong? So, my question is, what do you think is the root cause of this kind of mindset, or this thought pattern that, okay, this person left me to speak with someone else because I'm not maybe interesting enough, or I said something wrongly, or maybe, having that negative thought. What could be the root cause to that?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question. I believe that every one that faces a challenge like that, there is a root cause. And my root cause was actually what occurred when I was 8 years old. Uh, My mom, I'm a product of my mom's first marriage, but I never knew my father. I end up going through an adoption to the guy she remarried or marries when I was about 3. And so I'm 8 years old. I'm in the courthouse being adopted by this second husband. And as we're walking out, I'm like, well, first of all, I was put on the stand. And when I realized that my father didn't show up and nobody from that family showed up. Like nobody wanted me. And that like really hit me while I was there. It's like, well, why aren't they here? Am I not, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening? And then as we're leaving, I realized that mom likely said this in relationship to the family, not her, but her comment was, well, no one ever really wanted him anyway. And I heard my mom say that. And when you're a kid and you overhear stuff, you don't always ask for clarification. All I heard was, no one ever wanted me. And that stuck with me from that moment forward in my life. And after doing so much work on my own mind, I was able to trace literally the downturn of my life all the way back. Everything started going bad after that moment.
I'm so sorry about that, but thank you so much for sharing that. But right now, you've been able to do the work in order to rewire your brain from that pattern or from that thought. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes, absolutely. And I think that everybody likely has one thing. In all the work I do with people I've coached and helped, I can't think of one instance where I didn't bring it back to one event that happened in someone's childhood that totally derailed their existence. And once they deal with that and face it head on, their life changes.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I would like us to talk about your method, the SOBER method, SOBER method.
Yes.
It's incredible. It's a great method, and I would like you to walk us through each element. As you have the Stoic principles, the observation, Behaviour, modification, execution of positive habits, and restoration.
Yes.
So, can you tell us what they mean in real and everyday terms for everyone out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the sober method started out with this. I had this moment where I was going to the 12-step program and I was like, is this it? I mean, like, am all I'm going to do for the rest of my life is go to a meeting twice a week? And, like, I just don't feel like this is enough for me. I need something that is in the future. And so this thought process and came to me like all at once. And it was late at night and I just started writing it all down. And originally it was a 10-step process and I called it the Flavours of Confidence method. And so it was kind of clunky. I mean, I took a lot of people through the Flavours of Confidence method, but it became challenging because like, well, hold on a second. Now I'm on step 7. Now what, and then I'm like, wait a second, what's step 7? And then like other things from working in a 12-step program would cross over into my head. And I was like, I can't even teach my own program because I can't remember it. So I was like, you know what? I need to rewire this into something that everyone can remember. And it already was a cyclical program that works in continuous improvement, except it was 10 steps. So I kind of folded some steps into one another and reframed it into the sober method. So that's how we ended up with the sober method. And then when I called it the sober method, I was like, well, it's 2023. There has to be a sober method out here. I mean, like, come on. And so I go out to actually do all the copywriting and everything before I'm writing my book and deciding that, yeah, this is what I'm going to call it. And it is available. I'm like, son of a gun. Well, I guess this is divine intervention once again. And so that's what I called it. So the sober method stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore, as you said. And starting out with Stoicism, one of the large challenges in other programs is there's a lot of basis in Christianity, and it is often off-putting to a big section of the population that either is not religious or has a different religion. And so I felt like one of the best ways to be inclusive to everybody was to pull that out with something that was provided some of the similar guidance in looking to one's mind. And so Stoicism is ancient philosophy. This, came out of Greece, but it's interesting that Marcus Aurelius is probably one of the most famous Stoics with his writings and meditations. That's often cited. And that's also the guidance that I give people, is to start by looking at meditations. It's free. You can download it anywhere, go to Google Books and you can download a copy. And so it's a good, you can get started today if you just go do that. And what you want to do is take one verse out of meditations, and look at that verse. So let's maybe take a verse about, I can't remember the exact wording, but like Marcus Aurelius talks about, look at the person who is saying bad things about you and get inside of him, look inside of who he is and what his makeup is. Do you really care about his opinion? Yes or no? And of course you don't, because his opinion doesn't matter, because he's a bad person, right? And so oftentimes we look at, so that you would take that verse and then look at your own life. At what point do I take things that people say about me in a bad way that causes me to lean into my addiction? And you start like looking through your life and you're cataloging it and writing these things down, journaling it out, and looking at how this relates to your life. And we're very narrowly focusing on just this one thing that we're going to work on. Okay. So we move from there into observe this. So like truly doing this deep mapping. What is happening in the moment that I am confronted? Let's say, Toby, you say something bad about me and I'm like, well, okay, that hurt. Drink, it may be as simple as that, or it may be more complicated. Like it might be something like, you said something negative about me, and then I stop and I think, well, if other people think that, then they might tell other people. And then, like there might be a chain reaction. So we need to look at all of those pieces and understand how this action affects your overall thought. And we work to try to remap this behavior. That's the behavior step. So once you know what you're doing now, we're going into the behavior step. We're like, what might work better? What could work better to diffuse this? So we'll lean into the stoicism as we map this behavior out. You've said something negative about me. My reaction was to think about all of the ways that it could impact me from what you said. Instead of that, from now on, I'm going to say, well, hold on. Who is this guy that thinks that he can say this about me? I mean, he's a nobody. I don't care what he says about me. So maybe that's the way that you remap the behavior. Because if you thought that, then you wouldn't want to drink or use your substance of choice. You would be able to diffuse that situation. So now you got an idea. So you've remapped your behavior and you think this will work. So you push forward into execute. This is where you're testing mode. You're basically using yourself as your own, test subject. You put yourself into a situation where someone is going to say something negative about you to test if you can use your remap behavior and it works. And if it works, you moved on to restoration. And if it doesn't, you go all the way back to the O method and you're like, okay, what happened this time? Maybe I got partway into my thinking like it doesn't matter, but then I started thinking about, but it could matter. And these are the ways it could matter. And I'm remunerated on all of those things. And then I ended up drinking. So, well, we better figure out some other way of handling this. And then you remap that behavior. You try it again. Once you get it right, now you move into the restore, which is the somewhat typical making amends that you have in other step programs, but specific to this thing that you just fixed in your life. If I remember sometime that you've said something negative towards me and I took it the wrong way and I ended up drinking or going into a depression, well, I'm going to go to you and say, hey, I'm really sorry that you feel this way about me, or whatever you need to do to make amends with this person to set things right. It doesn't mean that you need forgiveness. This is so important because I think it's somewhat, forgiveness is misunderstood, I think, by a lot of people. Is the biggest thing that you want to do is forgive yourself for what has occurred, and as opposed to trying to gain the forgiveness from somebody else or be their bestie because you've made up. You don't want that. You just need to say your piece, let things lie, and continue to focus on yourself. That's so important. And then you go back to step S and you start again. Now, hidden inside of these the O.B. and E steps are focuses on diet, exercise, breathing, all sorts of other things that are so important because this is a holistic approach. I changed my entire diet. I cut out processed foods like nearly 100% in my diet. That's done a lot to change my mindset and my thinking. It's added a lot more clarity. I can tell you that. I lost 40. I mean, I took up figure skating. I'm a competitive figure skater now.
Wow.
So, I mean, and that's something I'm definitely very passionate about. And those are all subcomponents within the system. So while you're rewiring your mind, you're also looking at your body to improve yourself overall. So that's a very brief overview of how sober works.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I have a follow-up question as usual.
Sure. I
Always a
hope.
follow-up question. Maybe I'm combining behavior modification and the execution of positive habits.
Mhm.
Coming from a place of addiction, how do you deal with relapses? When it comes to, okay, this is how I normally react to this, maybe someone said something bad about me and then I go to drink, for example. But now I'm trying to modify my behavior, my response to it. Over time, yeah, one could be, I think it's two in one question. How do you stay consistent? And how do you deal with relapses also when it comes to changing the way you react or respond to situations?
Yeah. So relapses definitely are, I think they happen to the best of us. As I first came up sober, I had like 7 solid, like total fallout relapses and then complete sobriety in the course of about 3 weeks. And it was one of the most painful things I'd ever gone through because I would like completely go back down the rabbit hole. I wouldn't like just kind of maybe take one drink. My relapses were, hey, let's drink that entire bottle. And then being like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. And so I'd go to sober up, and then that would be so painful. And then a couple days later, I would relapse again. I'm just sharing that as a personal, like, I know what this is like because I'm more than 9 years down the road and being sober now. So looking back at a relapse sometimes is somewhat challenging to me because I so don't ever desire to drink anything or use anything at this point that it's almost a foreign concept to me, but I do work with so many people, so I do understand that it happens. And the big thing is that anytime someone is challenged by that, I always say, well, don't go back to observe, go back to stoicism and really think about, the impact that you're going to have on yourself and take that calm approach to what you're doing and why. What benefit and what picture of do you have for yourself? And that is a large part of what is created in the B step as we actually create like this life vision of where you are and what you're going to do and you're setting your goals for yourself because if you don't have a vision for yourself there's no reason to hold yourself to sobriety. Why would I be sober? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But if I'm trying to achieve something, I know the only way I'm going to achieve it requires that sobriety. That accountability kicks in. And I think that once you're accountable to yourself in that way, it's at least 10 times more powerful than being accountable to others. Because if you can hold your own accountability, that's discipline that nobody can mess with. You can't. And also I'll go back to the one and only time that I thought there was a chance that I might relapse after I had become sober was on August 1st of 2020 when Samantha was killed. And when I found out, that was painful and it hurt. And I was like, why is this happening? Why did it happen the way that it did? And why did it have to be a drunk driver? And why, like there was so much and just all that pain. That lasted but a few minutes though, because I almost immediately said, well, hold on a second. She wanted me to be sober and she worked hard to be sober for me to be sober. I have to remain sober. And since then, I never have thought about it again. But that was my weakest moment since I've been sober. And I went back and the purpose within me is what kept me on track.
That's awesome. Wow. A question to restoration.
Mhm.
And I would like to link that also to confidence. Sometimes we mess up and then when the light shines into our life, when the sun starts to shine and we start to see the mess that we've made, I think we lose a lot of confidence in ourselves and in humanity also. How do we then rebuild or restore our confidence, after the light is, has revealed our mess, and we're trying to walk towards restoring back the relationship that we have with ourselves, with other people out there. How do we build back up our confidence?
I think it starts with one of the greatest phrases that Marcus Aurelius has ever said: the obstacle is the way. The hardest thing to do is to face yourself and own up for it. So I always encourage everyone to immediately shine the light on yourself before someone else does, because surely they know who you are. There's no reason to hide it. Confidence comes from the ability to accept yourself for who you are on your own terms and be proud of who you are. I mean, I know I'm a little weird, but I'm okay with that. And because I'm okay with that, people accept that I am, right? And so that, and then because I accept that I am, it is an invitation to everyone around me to accept who they are and to be confident in their own skin. So the best advice I can give on confidence is just don't shy away from those things that you've done when the light shines upon them. Instead, own them. Yes, I did that. That was foolish. And, I probably would have done it differently now, but things happen. And then move on, because you can't change the past, but you certainly can reference it. And people often say you can learn from the past. Yeah, probably, but it's more like it's just kind of something that is back there, because you can also, if you say you learn from the past, I find people lean into their past a little bit too much and they start thinking about things that they used to do too often, which can also be a confidence killer, because then you start thinking about all the bad things that you used to do instead of focusing on all the great things that you're doing now, right? And so you don't want to get stuck in the past. I think if you take yourself and you always look ahead and you always look into the future, you're going to have a much brighter outcome for yourself and for others.
I don't lean into the past. Yeah, I would not do that. Yeah. I mean, a song was humming in my head. Leaning into the past for me felt like, dragging a dead horse along with you on your journey.
Yes.
I, yeah, I just remember the lyrics to a song somewhere when you mentioned that. I was like, okay. I just saw, you know, a vision of, a visual basically of someone whistling into the past is basically like dragging a dead horse into the future into the present with you.
It is. It is. That's an excellent visual. It's dead weight. It's like having an anchor on your, like being a prisoner in the cartoons where they have the big ball that's, chained to your ankle. That's what the past is. You got to unchain yourself from the past. And it's okay to look back and say, yeah, that happened, but it has no impact on who I am now. If I spent my time thinking about all the embarrassing things I did when I was drunk or high, I would never get anything done.
Maybe we could write a confessions book about everything that you did.
Oh my goodness. That would be a cathartic exercise, I'm sure.
You should reveal everything that you've done, and you're like, oh, you think you've done that bad? Okay, look at what I've done. I was like,
Yeah,
no.
a little bit of brinksmanship on that one. Now I'm going to one up you on that.
So for someone out there who is, the dealing with addiction right now, maybe
Mhm.
not addiction to alcohol, maybe some other kind of addiction, how would you advise them right now on their journey of recovery? What should they do? What should they pay attention to? Apart from the sober method, of course.
Well, I mean, even before somebody decides that they're going to walk away, I get approached a lot. Like people's like, I want to get sober because my kids depend on me. And my answer to someone when they say that is, you're not going to get sober. And they're like, but I need to get sober for my kids. I'm like, that's the wrong reason, And the first thing that you really have to do, and my advice to everyone is, look in yourself. Why are you doing it for you? If you don't have a reason that you're doing it for you, you will never stay sober. It just will not happen. I can attest to it. I've never seen anyone successfully remain sober for somebody else, because there's something within you that needs to change. And in my own case, it was always, oh, this person wants me to get sober. I even used to say, oh, well, Samantha wants me to get sober. And she used to say, well, that's not a reason. And I was like, yeah, it's a good reason. She's like, it won't work. And, and of course there was that playful back and forth between us, but she was right. She was 100% correct, because the day that I decided to get sober, I literally said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want that. And the second that I decided that, it was easy. And it just all fell into place. So if you're struggling to get through the cycle, or maybe you're like trying to get sober and you're having relapses and you keep going back and forth and back and forth, you may even be going to a 12-step program. It's quite possible. And you're still struggling to get over that hump. Stop for just a moment, take 10 minutes and write down what you want. What do you want to achieve and where do you want to be? And then see if you can align that with the lifestyle of continuing to drink or use drugs actually can make that happen. And if it can't, and you continue to read these things that you want, read them every day for the next week, and you'll start to see that you don't want to drink anymore. You're going to read that list in the morning. You're like, man, if I drink, I'm not going to be able to get any of this stuff done. And so you will change your mindset just by knowing what you truly want. I don't think a lot of people know what they want. I think so many of us just kind of float through life and we're just like in next step. And then you get through this day and then it's the weekend and then you're on and then it's Christmas. And that, like, I think that that's how so many of us live. And so many of us don't stop and think about there are 1,000 little steps between now and the end of this year. And each one of those steps can align you with a goal that will set your life in a totally new direction. If you know what that goal is. But if the goal is just, I got to make it to the end of the year. Well, heck, you're just going to kind of like look back at this year and go, what did I do? And that it's kind of twofold in that, because when you live your life that way, when you do look back, you're unable to say like, look at all the stuff that I achieved. Look at how far I've come this year. Those are things that boost that confidence and have some pride in yourself. And then that circles around you as well, because the people that are around you, when they see you start to put one foot in front of the other and make progress in your sobriety, they come out of the woodwork. They start cheering you on. They're like, man, you're doing so good. I'm so proud of you. I can't tell you how many people, like the first year wasn't great, but the second year when they're like, this might stick, how many people started saying, I am so proud of you. And that felt so good to hear. And, when I had 5 years of sobriety, somebody that had been actually pretty horrible to me when I was out on the streets,
Yeah.
threw me a 5-year sobriety party and invited tons of people to it. I was like,
Nice.
I did not see that coming at all. And then for her to say, I'm just so proud of you and what you've accomplished in the last 5 years. And that is like, wow. Okay. So like, that's the thing. So whatever you're doing right now, if it just stop for a moment, and you could be sober. This could be literally anyone out there. Just stop and think about what you're doing with your life. And are you doing it for you? Are you achieving the things that you want to achieve in life? And you may not be, because you might be living your life for someone other than yourself. But the people that are around you that support you, hold on to them. They want to support you in wherever you're going too. And if you have a clear path, they're going to rally behind you and make it happen.
I love what you just said right now. Whatever you're doing, take 10 minutes, just take a break, reflect on it basically. Like, are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it to please other people? Are you doing it because of something else? I like that so much, because if you're doing it for something else or for someone else, that something else or that someone else will leave at some point in your life. Would you then bounce back to where you started from, or what will be your story at that point? Will you feel lost because that person is gone? The reason why you changed your life is no longer there. What happens next? So do it for yourself.
You're so right. You're so right. And I think in some ways that's profound wisdom that you just said, because it shines a light squarely on what Samantha said. You never know. And she actually did say this. You never know. I may not be here. Then how are you going to stay sober? And yeah, of course, I jokingly said, yeah, right. But she had a point. Our time on this globe is finite. We don't know. It could, my life could end in 3 seconds while we're having this podcast, and hopefully I would survive it, but who knows? Maybe I'll just slump over. But I say that to say that if once you take that reflective time and you start charting a path, the next thing that will start to occur is what I just said, is that now I live my life in a meaningful enough way that I feel if I was taking this moment, I've achieved and done what I wanted to do, and that I'm on the path that is right for me. and it's helping other people, because my life has become one of service that also benefits me, which is really a strange way to make one's way in the world. But that's truly what it is. I'm helping others who also help get to where I'm going. And so there's some mutual benefit and positive affirmation that falls behind me in the work that I do. And that's very uplifting for me.
Yeah, that's lovely. So I would like to talk a little bit about productivity and
Mhm.
also coming from a place of sobriety also, because I've heard from other people also like, oh, I need to, drink or smoke to stay productive. It helps them going, it helps them running. I even watch series, some series that, you see the lawyer very up on her game, but she's always drinking and she's always running and always burning the midnight candles and all of that. So when you leave all of that away, how do you then stay productive? Like how was your approach to being focused at your work and your relationship with, time and energy? How was it? How was your transformation influenced all of that, your productivity?
I'm definitely more productive than I ever was before. And I was one of those people that I was a high functioning alcoholic. So I was nobody really had anything negative to say in the halls that I hung out with, because you just hit it on the head. If I went to my lawyer's office, we'd sit there and we'd have a drink and we'd talk about whatever. And that's not uncommon in so many high pressure, high functioning jobs. And that's specifically what I have focused on helping for the last 5 years, is just working with doctors and lawyers and pharmacists, engineers, people who are at the top of their game that get severely stressed, but then also can't really necessarily show the public that I've got a drinking problem. Yet once you get past this and you're sober and you have purpose and you're marching in this cadence of purpose, then you start having the time that when you were drinking, you start reflecting, you start journaling, you start the stress points that you used to lean into for drinking may end up being you turn around at your desk and in that 61st floor skyscraper you're working at, and you look out at the city and you're like, wow, it's pretty amazing I get to sit here. There aren't many people that ever have this experience, and you start living a more fulfilling existence. And so those little things like that actually boost your energy level. And I noticed that personally. And you're also taking poison out of your body, because alcohol is poison at the end of the day. So
Yes.
you're not helping yourself by saying that, oh, this is great. Or people that are challenged by smoking. Now, I haven't coached a lot of people that are smokers, but I'm sure that sober method could probably help them as well, because once again, it's that same type of mindset, is that you're going to a cigarette for a reason. So really anything that's addictive is challenged. You're challenged somewhere in your makeup of something that you're dealing with that you're not ready to deal with. I think that's where most of the addiction lies. So as you push through that, the energy level will come up, the positiveness around you increases. And I tell you, I don't feel tired that often anymore. I just don't. I was much more tired when I was drinking all the time.
And now you're full of energy and you're able to focus better and be present actually. I think that's one thing.
Yeah, I think that you also become much more attuned with others once you have that clearer mind, because you're no longer, I think this is probably the Stoic work in the sober method that does this, is since you're much more in tune with yourself and you're more calm, your mind can remain calm when others are talking to you. And so you can actually step back and truly listen and be in the moment, which is a challenge for so many people. There are very few good listeners. Most people, when you're talking, are already 3 sentences into what they want to say the second you shut up.
That's very true. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you realize that, and then you start to have the awareness, the longer that I have been sober, you become aware of when people are not present. You can notice these things in others. And then I'm able to like flip that over and say, what's going on with you? You look like you're stressed. You're not really here right now. And then everything comes out. It breaks the dam, because they've been waiting for someone to notice, because we humans don't like to necessarily burden other people with our challenges. So we'll do a lot to cover up that we're in pain or suffering or not getting what we need. And so that's another added benefit, I think, to having a really clear mind.
Right. I just remembered something right now when you talked about, the people that you work with. And I was reading about you earlier. I was stalking you a little bit. I know I read that, for example, I mean, your earlier your clients, some of them you work with them, discreetly, like, not exposing them. So I was thinking about, stigma that is attached to being addicted to something, trying to recover from it. Like, can you dismantle some of this misconception about addiction and recovery that people are holding on to right now and that's not helping them to want to even admit, like you said earlier, admit that they are not okay with their
Yeah.
situation?
Well, I that is one of the greatest challenges with the clients that I work with. As I mentioned, these are individuals that if people knew they were struggling with addiction would lose their jobs. That would lose their place in community. If you were, let's say you're in a smaller community, maybe 25,000 people in your town, and you go to an AA meeting and you're a doctor, well, guess what? Everybody in town now knows you're a drunk. How many people are going to come see you now? So that person struggles in the darkness, and there are so many people like that, and they don't know how to get through their challenge. And those are the types of individuals that I work with. And I I show up in that space in a way that I relate to them, because having been a business owner when I was really struggling, I also didn't really have anyone that I could talk to. Even when it reached a point where I felt like I needed to, had Samantha not shown up, I'm not sure what would have happened, but I probably would have just continued to be a drunk and lost everything. And quite frankly, I'd probably still be living on the street. It's so that spiral could happen very quickly for those that don't really have anyone they can talk to. And a spouse may not even be a good outlet in this case, because again, if you're in a tight knit community, the last thing that you need is your wife is at the country club and tells somebody that, oh, he's at such and such rehab facility right now. Well, that's the end of his career, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very, very tough. And so that kind of confidentiality I take very seriously, and that's the reason I focus on, because these individuals that I work with touch so many lives, and they have the opportunity to hurt or help many, many people based on their level of sobriety. A doctor who is sober is going to do a much better job than one who is, performing his skills under the influence and might make a mistake. And then that might cause a loss of life. And those are weight, that's a lot of weight that some of these individuals carry, and knowing that they need to do something and they just don't feel like they have any place to turn. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a great job you're doing out there. Helping our very highly professional but very sensitive professions to,
yes,
get on the right path without
yes,
them losing their jobs.
yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to get to a point, and that's really, I'm like in a transitional point right now. I had so many of these clients that I've worked with that actually came to me and said, you need to make this open. You need to go more broad. You need to get the message out on what you're doing and how it could have a positive impact on more people. So I'm actually taking that step right now. And my website, sobermethod.com, is about to be to that point where I'm going to bring on, like, anyone who shows up. We're going to start having some virtual meetings, and because there's tons of people who are okay with being, you know, in the light and help one another and see each other's faces, because these are the individuals that are going to meetings, 12-step programs right now, and they might it may not be working for them. And so I want to provide that alternative method that maybe this would work. To me, it doesn't matter how you find your sobriety, it's finding it. That's what's important to me. It'd be great if sober works for you, but maybe you think it's trash. I think it's awesome. I think it's the best. That's because I made it, and it works great for me, and I've seen it work great for others. But what truly, truly matters to me the most is that everyone finds their own sobriety.
Yeah, that's a great mission. And maybe in the future, you could have like the sober podcast where you have people on your show and they share their story of addiction and their journey of sobriety and how you help them with that also. That could be something.
That could be something. I mean, I've toyed with it. It's a lot of work having a podcast, though, isn't it?
I mean, do I make it look easy? Maybe. I don't know.
You do it so well.
Oh, thank you. But I mean, that idea just popped in my head right now when you were talking about it. I was like, oh, that would be a nice podcast to listen to. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear people's story from you. I mean, you hosting them, interviewing them, and talking about addictions and their sobriety journey. That would help a lot of people out there, I believe.
I think that could be a pretty good podcast, actually.
Yeah. Especially for people who are suffering in silence or who are struggling with it in silence and they tune into the podcast to listen and hear a very familiar story to what they are experiencing. It help them maybe come out, help them to even on their journey, maybe even without seeking out for help, knowing exactly what to do because they'll pick up the tools, the practices that they have to, make use of to come out of their addiction. That could
Yeah.
be something.
Yeah. No, great idea. I might just run with it.
Please, Rob, we sit down to see on Apple podcast very soon, the S.O.B.E.R podcast. And I was like, yeah, from Massimo. That would be nice.
Then I'll have you on my show.
What will I talk about? I'm addicted to working a lot. Yeah.
No, you could help me talk about how you work with a lot of high performing people and that you think that it'd be important if they had clear minds.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I believe it's very important for the high performing professionals to have a clear mind. Yeah. It's a very important mission that you're doing right now. I mean, helping those people out there.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you very much.
Well, Massimo, I've learned so much from you from this conversation. It's a lot. And thank you so much for opening up, sharing your story. I mean, it's a very vulnerable story to share, but you shared it so much with so much light and passion. And thank you so much for going to the dark side with me, talking about Samantha also. I'm really sorry for pushing you in that direction. But I'm happy with you talked about it and you also respected her in the answers that you gave also, like, making references to her. It's a very painful thing to experience, but also it's life changing and it's teaches a lot of lesson also, I believe. So what would be like a last message you would like to give to someone out there right now who is, for example, feeling stuck or lost, or they have just lost their flavor of life, basically? Like, what would you like to share with them in order to ignite that first spark of hope?
I think the most important thing that everyone out there needs to remember is that the strength to do anything that you want to do in your life comes from within. Just stop for a moment, stop for 5 minutes, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm capable of doing this. And it all starts there. You have that strength, you have that power, we all do. And once you start those first steps, everybody's going to be pushing you along your way and your life will totally change. And I believe in you. I believe that you can do it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that. For people out there who would like to reach out to you, maybe work with you, what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm available on all social media handles at Sober Method. Also at Reddit, we've got a thriving community building, and sobermethod.com. You reach out, and as I mentioned, we got some interesting stuff about to drop. So I hope to work with many of you that are struggling. If you're listening, I'm here for you.
Awesome. I'll post the link to your website in the show notes of this episode. On your website, you have the link to all your social media platforms, also Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X also. So I encourage everyone out there who has listened so far to connect with you on all these platforms and maybe reach out to you directly also to see how you could start your journey of sobriety and also getting back your confidence, getting all the flavor of confidence. Thank you so much. It has been a great pleasure speaking with you, getting to meet with you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Toby.
Thank you very much.